Rob Smith, how are you, brother?
Hey, what's going on, Mike? How you doing?
Pretty funny, man. Bill Clinton falling asleep in the middle of the thing?
Look, I mean, I guess it was a long day, and the speech wasn't the most exciting thing I've ever seen. So
That's funny. What do you make of the whole event, like the pomp and circumstance of what we just witnessed in general?
well, let's see. First of all, I don't know whose idea it was to have Jennifer Lopez follow Lady Gaga, but that is already one of the worst decisions that has been made by this Biden administration. Because Lady Gaga, I have to say, it was great, great, great national anthem. And Jennifer Lopez looked like, I don't know, she belonged on a Disneyland float or whatever. It just wasn't up to par vocally. The rest of the pomp and circumstance, look, it really does give you a sense of how powerful, our capital in Washington, D.C. is as a symbol. There was a lot of talk about how, this has been going on for a very long time, and no matter what, it will still stand. And that stuff is great. It really does fill you with a sense of pride as an American, no matter where you fall on the political spectrum. I obviously did not vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, but it does fill you with a sense of pride that our institutions remain. In terms of his speech, look, I say talk is cheap. There was a lot of talk about unity, but then there was also, all of these references to white supremacy, to the insurrection at the Capitol, to all these different things. So on one side of his mouth, Joe Biden's talking about unity, but on the other side, it's sort of like this leftist red meat dog whistle, to the base. And I think that Joe Biden is going to have a very, very, very hard time moderating some of the language of the base. And when I say the base, I'm not talking about political commentators. I'm talking about congressmen and women who are very, very far left and incendiary in their language on Twitter. So this remains to be seen.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you exactly. And you say moderating the language, but he was the one using that very same language, as you said. And we actually have a clip of that section here. Here it is.
Millions of jobs have been lost. Hundreds of thousands of businesses closed. A cry for racial justice, some 400 years in the making, moves us. The dream of justice for all will be deferred no longer. A cry for survival comes from the planet itself. A cry that can't be any more desperate or any more clear. And now, a rise of political extremism, white supremacy, domestic terrorism that we must confront and we will defeat. To overcome these challenges, to restore the soul and secure the future of America, requires so much more than words. It requires the most elusive of all things in a democracy, unity.
He said he's going to fix the cry for justice. Talked about being against white supremacy and against domestic terrorism and systemic racism, and then threw in the climate crisis. And then right after that, like the next sentence, talked about the need for unity. Can you have unity in this country when you're using terms like domestic terrorism when we know he means you and me, Rob?
Yeah. And I mean, look, you're using words like domestic terrorism to talk about the 75 million Americans who voted for your opponent. And I just don't know that this is the language that brings us together. But this is my theory for the incoming Biden administration. We're going to hear a lot of this stuff. We're going to hear a lot of language about white supremacy. We're going to hear a lot of language about extremism and all of that stuff, because they're going to have to use language to elicit emotions from their base. Because let me tell you, their base is, people's lives are about to get worse. Things are not going to be good for the working class under a Biden administration. And they're going to have to kind of make everybody, not aware of this. They're going to have to try to say, look over here, we're going to talk about racism and white supremacy and all of these different theories while we enact policies that are going to really harm the vast majority of working Americans. And it's sad to say, and it's a little fatalist, but I think it's true. And I hope to God that I'm proven wrong, because I want America to win. I would love for Joe Biden to be successful, but just looking at these policies and looking at the plans and looking at the things that he wants to do, even in the first 100 days, I just don't think they're good.
That's such a good point. As we've heard, the first thing he's going to do is to cancel the Keystone Pipeline, right?
Yeah.
So you want to talk about economic problems to come. Obviously, the people specifically related to that, but then also the people, all of us who benefit from a thriving oil industry. So I love that point. So while we're going to have economic hardship, not to mention the aftermath of COVID and everything, and I see inflation coming and all the rest. So to distract us from that, it's going to be all about race. That's your prediction.
I think so. I think that this conversation about race and racism and white supremacy and all of this other stuff, it's going to serve to distract a vast majority of the working class, including the African-American middle class, who, by the way, had never had it better than under President Trump. It's going to distract them from the fact that their lives are about to get a lot worse. They're about to start making less money. They're about to be more heavily taxed, and there will just be less opportunity. So in order to distract them from this, they have to have this boogeyman of racism and white supremacy. And Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are going to be very shrewd, and they're going to stoke those flames to distract from the fact that their policies are just not good. And they're not going to work for America.
Yeah, I think that's right. We did a segment on the radio yesterday about this new term. I'm seeing it everywhere. Whiteness. And whiteness is to blame for everything. It's all over there. Whiteness. You just do a Google news search for whiteness. There's all these headlines about whiteness. And even right after the Capitol, the first speech that Biden and Kamala gave were about turning it into a race thing, which was just wild. Rob, what's your advice for, let's start with Trump. What do you think Trump should do? He calls you up. He says, hey, Rob, good to talk to you, man. What do I do these next few weeks and months?
First of all, do not announce any sort of run for president in 2024. That's what I would say. I would say President Trump is deeply popular within the base of the party, and he will continue to be deeply popular within the base of the party. So use that popularity to sort of bring up the next generation of not only conservative influencers, but also conservative, congressmen, congresswomen, our senators. Use your celebrity to help these people out. He said a really great thing in his farewell address. He said that a lot. He said we a lot. He talked about what we have done, what we have built, what we will continue to build. And I would say, Mr. President, it's time to make the MAGA movement about we the people. Because I think that for so many of us, we enjoyed seeing President Trump fight. And we enjoyed seeing him take on the deep state and the swamp. But as it turns out, the swamp was too much even for President Trump to overcome. And I think that sometimes, and I said this a lot on my podcast, Rob Smith is Problematic. We've got a new episode this week. And it became kind of an obsession about President Trump as a person and not so much about the policies and what he represented. So if I would say anything to him, it would be to make sure that we are building a movement and that you are helping to build a movement that lasts far beyond you. And that is actually about more than President Trump, because I think the MAGA movement is about more than President Trump. It's about populism. It's about America first. It's about learning to love this country, no matter what your race or gender or sexual orientation or any of that other crap that people use to divide us. Yeah,
I like that a lot. Trump needs to move from king to kingmaker in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good. Is, my last question for you, Rob, is a Trump endorsement moving forward even more than a kiss of death, right? Because, if you're not a terrorist, you're you're soliciting terrorism, or you're implicit, or whatever. You're a terrorist sympathizer and all these other things. So is anyone who's endorsed by the president moving forward going to be called a domestic terrorist as well? And that being said, who are you looking for or hoping can kind of step up and fill perhaps a leadership void in the Republican Party?
I mean, the thing about it is that Trump will remain deeply popular with the base. And there's not going to be any avoiding whoever he comes up to endorse. There's not going to be any avoiding him being thrown around their necks and being used as, they're with this and they supported Trump and Trump supports them, so it's for XYZ. Do I think it's going to work in the Republicans' congressional races where it's the most important? I don't think that leftist tactic is going to work. I think that Trump is going to be a kingmaker. I think his endorsement is going to be very powerful and very important moving forward. Who would I like to see step up more in the Republican Party? Love Tim Scott, would love to see more of him. Would love to see more of Governor Kristi Noem. I think that she's a superstar. I like Congressman Madison Cawthorn. You know, I'm proud to call the guy a friend. He's great. I like Congressman Dan Crenshaw. All of these people have MAGA qualities. You know, like they have that MAGA populist America First glow. And these are the kinds of leaders that we're going to need to see moving forward.
Yeah, good stuff. Rob Smith online on Twitter, and go to Rob Smith is Problematic. That's the name of the podcast. Awesome, Rob. Good to talk to you, man.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Wow, that was deep and insightful. I want more of that. Like, subscribe, get more.